$3 billion for being late. Yes, that's the annual cost of tardiness in the United States. As a time management and productivity mentor, I treat tardiness or lateness very seriously. I always tell my wife and my kids every time that you're late, what you're communicating to the other person is that your time is more important than their time. So yes, I consider punctuality a great quality to possess, and it's not just me. Over the years, I read a lot about the effects of tardiness in society. I read from experts, and all of them they say that punctuality is a sign for self-regulation and also respect. And self-regulation is something that I've talked a lot about in my channel in other videos. And self-regulation basically means, your ability to control the variables that are in your control. For example, if you know that you have a meeting and the meeting is at 10 a.m. in the morning and it takes you 30 minutes commute to be at that meeting, obviously you should know that if you leave at 9:30, if everything goes well, you're going to be there exactly at 10 a.m., right? So what would you do in this situation? Self-regulation is your ability to control the variables. So what are the variables? Well, traffic, how long it's going to take you to go from the parking lot to the meeting place. Is it going to be busy? Are you going to find a parking spot readily available? All those variables that most of them you can't control. Now, what you can control is traffic, and other things that you can plan for, but not necessarily control. So you can plan to leave, like, I don't know, 15 minutes earlier or 20 minutes earlier, and then you get stuck on a huge traffic. So that's the uncontrollable variables, right? But most of them you can control. And it's so interesting that tardiness it varies according to the culture. At the beginning of the video, I shared with you that it costs the US about $3 billion, the effect of being late. But it's different from different cultures. For example, in Peru, where they have what it's called the Peruvian time, which is more flexible. The cost in Peru is about $5 billion a year because the society is more flexible with time and they're more acceptable when it comes to tardiness and being late. This became such a big problem for Peru that back in 2007, former President Alan Garcia, he created a campaign against tardiness. The campaign was called La Hora Sin Demora, or the hour with no delay. And the campaign was targeted to change this flexibility in society about being late. And I'm not talking about being 5, 10, 15 minutes late. It was normal for their culture to be late 30 minutes, an hour for an appointment. That was acceptable, and it created a huge impact in the society. Now, for example, in Japan, being punctual is a cornerstone of the society. It's a sign of huge respect. Being on time in Japan is a sign of showing discipline, showing respect, and showing that you care about other people's time. For example, the trains in Japan, they work like religiously on time, and punctuality obviously is very important to them. So much so that if the train is late 30 seconds, for example, you're going to hear in the speaker the people that manage the train station apologizing for the train being late 30 seconds. And look at this stat. Back in 2015, they did a study about tardiness and lateness in school. And they had 80 to 85% of students, of 15-year-old students, saying that they never been late to school. That's a huge number. Comparing to the US, which is about 60 to 70%, it's a big number. So this reflects that the emphasis on being on time is trained or is taught on very early from school. So it's interesting the difference in culture. Like as I mentioned, Japan being late, it's a big disrespect, right? Now in other countries, like I mentioned, Peru or even Sweden, being late is considered just an inconvenience. So it's not like a big deal. I mean, it's okay if you're late, like in Japan, it's not okay. It's a huge sign of disrespect. And you have to agree with me that, being late from time to time, sometimes you're late, like eventually you got late to an appointment. It's quote unquote okay, but chronic lateness, which you see in some people's behavior, that is a huge sign of disrespect. And it causes big strains in personal and professional relationships. I've mentioned this before in my channel, but people with ADHD, they have a problem with time estimation, okay? Yeah, it's called time blindness. So sometimes they're late, not because they want to, but because simply they cannot, measure the time correctly. That's why when, people with ADHD, the people that I coach or that I've trained, I always teach them to apply an external timer device because their internal clock is faulty. So apply external device to track time, right? People with ADHD, they have this deficit in the executive functions, and they are managed by the prefrontal cortex. So they have this deficit which disable them to understanding time the way that people without ADHD understand. And the study in 2023 showed that people with ADHD, they are more forgetful and they are more distracted, which means that their ability to track time or even to follow time scheduled is harder. And like I mentioned before, time blindness, I think it's important to kind of give you a quick definition when it comes to ADHD. It's the ability to know how to measure time for things, like time that it takes for you to get dressed, for example, to commute from one place to another, to get things prepared and ready. So people with ADHD, they have a hard time estimating the time that these things take. And we know that it's natural for us to just underestimate the time that things will take, that each task will take. For people with ADHD, that's even more pronounced. That's why I teach people strategies like time blocking, setting up alarms, because these will help you not to be forgetful or not to fall into the trap of missing an appointment, losing time, and time blindness itself. Even for our health, there are implications when you have chronic tardiness or when you're always late. Your cortisol levels, they raise when you're late because your stress level goes up, and that creates a series of sets in motion a series of things in your body that will contribute to poor health. Have you noticed that every time that you're stressed out because you're late, you tend to make poor decisions, or you tend to be sloppy, or you tend to be forgetful, distracted, because that pressure because you are late is raising your cortisol levels, which is messing your entire system up. So yes, being on time is not only a matter of showing respect, but also a matter of taking care of yourself, of your health, of your body. So there are many ways for you to train this within yourself, like I mentioned, time blocking, setting alarms, but it's more like a mentality shift, okay? It's not okay to always be late. Don't tell that lie to yourself, okay? Because like I said in the beginning of the video, every time that you're late, you're just telling the other person, my time is more important, it's okay for you to wait. How do you feel about that when it comes to you? So I hope you enjoyed this video about tardiness and the effects of tardiness in society. If you like this content, feel free to like the video, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on our next video. God bless you.